Thanks again to Liz and her team for sharing their story with us. And the way we wanted to continue the afternoon is really, again, talking about the importance of stories. Liz touched on it, the importance of getting to know each sister individually as a story. Sister Sylvia gave us her story. Each sister has a story and intertwines with the story of the congregation. So the Grey Nuns and Sister Julia Lanigan, the former president of the Grey Nuns, Kimberly Van Haitsma, the Chief Operating Officer of the Abramson Center for Jewish Life, and she'll tell you a little bit about the Abramson Center, but it's sort of the go-to, this is Val here, is the Chief Operating Officer, is the go-to nonprofit Jewish agency in the Philadelphia area, very innovative. And we have the director of the Palmieri Institute, which is a research institute housed at the Abramson Center, Dr. Kimberly Van Haitsma, with us as well. And Kimberly also serves as a professor at Penn State University. Abramson Center has a formal relationship, an affiliation relationship with Penn State University. Sister Julia comes with an MBA. So I think as we worked with Sister Julia, she had a certain business, but also a certain compassionate rigor, and those two married up very well. And she'll tell you the story of the Grey Nuns and how this Catholic organization partnered with a Jewish organization to really create an effective life plan coaching program for each Grey Nun sister. And with that, I'll turn the festivities over to Sister Julie Lanigan. Sister Julie.
Okay. Thank you. You want to give me the next slide? Well, just to set the background, our congregation had approximately 115 sisters with a median age of 79 in the time around between 2008 to 2013. And we sold our mother house property because we had a decreasing number of sisters, familiar story here, unsustainable cost of maintaining such a large property, and few members who were going to be able to handle property management in the future. So looking at that reality, we chose to sell the mother house property, and we completed the sale in 2012, and we leased back the property and the buildings for 5 years so that we could find a place to move, okay, and relocate everybody. Maybe the next one. Okay. When we were selling the property, you can see we had increasing health issues that were created because we had to relocate at least 65 sisters, some from the mother house, of course, and others from different areas of the Northeast, where we had sisters living who were at a point where they would have been moving to the mother house for care, but since we were selling the mother house, we weren't moving to the mother house, but they had to be moving wherever we were going. And we were looking for alternative ways of providing supportive health services that had been traditionally provided at the mother house by our own infirmary or our wellness staff, okay? Just on a note there, we had already had sisters who were needing personal care, assisted living level, in a licensed place on the property at our mother house. And that was being run by Holy Redeemer Health System by the time we were selling the property. Plus the people who were needing skilled care were already in a licensed skilled facility right down the street here in the Holy Redeemer Health System. So we were operating mostly and moving the people who were needing services and some care and wellness support at the mother house. Now, in looking for where to move and how to make this happen, we partnered, thankfully we partnered with Realm to seek locations where our sisters who, once they were moved, could live for the rest of their lives. The hope, of course, was aging in place, and we were hoping for aging in the right place. We definitely were seeking home health services to be brought in as needed, and we did not want to be the healthcare delivery group. Healthcare was not our basic ministry, and we didn't have people young enough and healthy enough to be going into it at this point or keeping it going at this point. And we certainly had a goal of avoiding future moves to healthcare facilities as much as we could, so as long as possible, or totally, if that was possible for some people. Okay? The reason we were looking for that was to support aging in place, so once moved, sisters could stay where they were. And secondly, to avoid us being the healthcare providers. Now, we were seeking, along with that, a home health provider who could include case management on life planning for the whole group, and not just one sister at a time getting home health service. Because if, in my perspective, and when we were working with Realm, we had agreement there, that if we were trying to be the case managers, we were still in the business of providing a ton of services, which we didn't have the personnel or the expertise to do. So, but finding a home health group that was willing to take on case management for this, we couldn't find one that already did it. Okay, next slide. And that's where we came to Abramson Center for Jewish Life. They were willing, when we talked to them, to experiment with us and start this. I think we were your first group that you took on that way, and they provided that service of case managers, life planners, who would coordinate all the sisters that lived in, we had about almost 50 sisters who lived in independent apartments at a continuing care facility, which is right down the road here. And after that, they also picked up sisters at another apartment complex a little farther down the road there, who were healthier than the first group, but are also in the age bracket with the rest of us. And so they have been coming under the umbrella. I'm going to pass it over to Val, but the challenge was getting sisters to understand all these different terms, all these different kinds of situations, all the wellness acronyms and healthcare things, and being willing to work with people that they didn't know yet, building the relationships and making the thing work. So little by little, at this point, many of them are very happy with the setup. The longer they've been with it, the more they understand it, the better it works.
Okay, I don't want to trip you. Okay. And now I'm going to stand with my back to you. So, I'm Val Palmieri, and I'm from the Abramson Center for Jewish Life, but I'm Roman Catholic. So, when I was first hired there, I said, "Are you sure? Me? Am I going to be able to lead in this organization?" They said, "Sure, you'll do fine." And I did. I've been there for 13 years. So, that's before I got my hair colored. Everybody says it makes me look younger, but I'm sure it does. Anyway, so let me tell you a little bit about our care management model before I start talking about our working with the Grey Nuns, which is such a privilege. And I'll tell you a little bit about that too. But we had a care management program that was very general for older adults living in the Northeast. Very general. We have an adult day, a medical adult day there. We have a little home care. We have hospice. And we care manage older adults living in affordable housing in the Northeast. Because there's a pocket of Jewish community right there. And we were effective at it. And then Stuart called from Realm and said, "Would you consider working with some sisters?" I said yes. And my boss, who knows I love to chase shiny balls, warned me, "Be careful, tread carefully. If it works, don't chase something that's not going to work." And I think as soon as I met Sister Julia and the leadership team of the Grey Nuns, it felt like I was home. It was a beautiful thing. Now, mind you, when I was a child, I used to sleep with a nun doll. Remember the nun dolls? I don't even think they have them anymore. They had the little rosary that hung on the side. They were not comfortable to sleep with. But so somehow it brings me back to doing the right thing with really wonderful people. And it feels good to do it. So, personal story aside. We met and we shared ideas about what could this be. Can we do it? Can we do it effectively? Are we the right fit for the sisters? And we decided, yes, we could make it work. And I think because we're a very nimble organization and the Grey Nuns were open to working with us, it just fit together like a beautiful puzzle piece. That really, it's like putting that blue sky in the right place, that puzzle piece. And so we created a model that would be right for the Grey Nuns. We said what program components were going to be important for the sisters. We didn't have to play the family. The order, the sisters that were there are like the family. And we had to use that process, work in conjunction with the family effectively. The Grey Nuns also had a very active, robust leadership and lay leadership team. And CLA, yes, a community life.
Administrator and community life assistants.
So we call that CLAs for short. And so we work closely with the CLAs and the lay leadership that works with the CLAs, who, although some are aging themselves, and we didn't need to have a 90-year-old caring for a 92-year-old. We needed to insert ourselves, but not replace. We needed to find a way to work effectively. And building that relationship was vital from the beginning. You know, some of the sisters were off balance a little. The move was very challenging. And so we didn't need to insert ourselves and, you know, upset the apple cart. So I will tell you that in building that relationship, respecting each sister's privacy was really important. What we shared with the leadership team was carefully evaluated. We wanted to do what was right for each sister, but we had to respect their privacy if we were going to have a long-term relationship with each sister. And so that was and is still very important. And for us, especially since we have research as a partner, it had to be data-driven. We had to use best practices. We had to use the best tools in the industry to make sure that we were providing the best services for sisters in a compassionate way. So we learned early on, I guess this is me before I got my hair colored too. So you could click it. There were allergic words that we were not allowed. You could just keep clicking because there's about 12. There were allergic words. So when we first met, Sister very seriously said, there's allergic words that you cannot use when you talk to the sisters. And so these were some of those allergic words. We could not use these words. It's like, did you ever have a French teacher that said you can't speak English in class? So you tell someone who works in healthcare, you can't say assessment. So you'll talk to a sister and say, we're going to have a meeting. I'm going to learn about you as a woman, because you couldn't say older adult, you know. So it really was challenging, but we kind of got into it, you know. We did slip up once in a while, but we never used the word nursing home. What's the one? Nursing home appropriate or something like that. It's just out of my jargon. Nursing home eligible, that's the one. And that helped us have a relationship with the sisters too, because it was new for us and it was new for them. And so first we met with the sisters collectively. I think we did that twice to explain who we are and how we were going to fit and let them make the choice. And then we explained it again and we introduced ourselves, our team. The team was care managers. Oh, they're not care managers. That's an allergic word. They were life plan coordinators. A nurse practitioner that would be able to visit them. They didn't have to give up their doctor, but the nurse practitioner was going to be able to see them if they were waiting for an appointment, or if they had a cough and didn't think it was so bad. We've had that. And then the nurse practitioner goes in and can evaluate, get an x-ray in their apartment if it doesn't sound right, and not have to wait for a doctor's appointment. The psychologist, we had our whole team there, and they met them, and it was okay. Once we decided to move forward, there were certain okay, I'm going to use an allergic word. There were certain assessments that we were going to get done. But we didn't want to walk in with a clipboard. It would have been a big turnoff. So we did our ADL assessments and IADL assessments through one-to-one visits. You can go to the next one. We called that our conversational interviews. And we did a visit with each sister individually, where we could assess the apartment, we could chat about their life to help develop the life plan. And we filled out the assessments off-site because we didn't want to run in with a clipboard and check boxes, right? So those one-to-one interviews really helped us form those initial relationships and build the life plan. We also gave each sister a packet because, you know, I know we've talked today about, a lot of people have talked about vital living, but we also term that as flourishing. Did you talk about flourishing, or? Flourishing. Kind of back in the day in my world, when I taught CCD, we used to say, bloom where you're planted. But now we say, are you flourishing where you are? So we have a flourishing assessment. But the flourishing assessment, where someone does a self-assessment about, am I happy where I am? Is this good for me? A thriving, which is also the thriving inventory. Our preferences for everyday living inventory, where a sister talks about their individual preferences. How do you want to live your life? Dr. Van Haitsma is going to talk about that. And the Road to Good Health questionnaire, they were given to the sisters as optional. You can fill these out. You don't have to fill them out. They're for you to help determine where you are and where you want to be. And so you don't have to return them to us, we said. But if you do, it'll help us develop your life plan. All the sisters but one return them. So there's always that one. So we got lots of information to build a life plan. Information from the CLAs, all the assessments that we completed, and all those self-assessments that the sisters completed. And we created a life plan. So this is a sample life plan. We should have one. Look, I put Sister Valerie, although that's not the name I would choose. And I do have a name I would choose if I ever get there. So these were some of the categories that we would select for sisters based on what their passions were. We were not there in any way to help with their spiritual life. That was here in the middle. That's their own, that's that blue circle around their name, because we know that that's something that they own, and they own with their orders and their family, and but we can affect all these other things. So we might do broad categories of what we can ensure, what we would be able to help with. You can go to the next one. And these were more detailed. And once we've developed the life plan, we met with each sister again and reviewed the life plan to make sure it met what they wanted. Were we going to provide food shopping assistance? There's some sisters that we order the P-Pod, for home delivery of their food. We are going to regularly review their apartment for safety. We're going to have the psychology visit to their, some get visits early when they're moving. That whole move was very challenging. And, but, it's on an ad hoc basis. The nurse practitioner visits, and so we create this life plan together, and it is an iterative process. It's an ongoing process where we will update the life plan. As a matter of fact, some of the sisters, I believe, have the life plan on their refrigerator with a magnet with their life plan coordinator's phone number. We want them to call us if something comes up. Call us anytime, and not so much. Sometimes. They still have those CLAs very embedded and rely on that. And that's a work in progress for us. And as the sisters change, or as their needs change, I think we'll see that change as well. Now I get to introduce Kimberly.
Thank you, Val. So it's been a great joy for me to be here today and hear all of the different things that are going on with this group. I'm new to this group, so it's been very educational. I want to talk just a little bit about the importance of learning using validated tools. And, as I'll give a little bit of background for myself. So I am a clinical geropsychologist, and as was mentioned, I am part of a research institute that's embedded within the Abramson Center for Jewish Life. We also, in that partnership with Penn State University, I'm a professor there, we also develop a program for person-centered living systems of care. So all of our work is really dedicated to this idea that all of the wonderful ideas that are being done in terms of how to enhance quality of care and quality of life not only be used to help particular individuals that are receiving that care, but can then be leveraged up into learning about the science of how to deliver better care. So by participating in research, people actually contribute to the broader advancement of knowledge for everyone. So that's our goal, that's our mission as a research institute. And one of the things that I want to just talk a little bit about is this idea of why do we care if assessment tools that we're using are validated or the same across different organizations. So I heard today a lot about different types of ways of asking questions, not assessments. And in every different instance, there may be a different portfolio of questions that are being asked. So one of the strengths of getting validated tools is that now you're able to actually take those tools and apply it across your community, so you get reliable and valid results regardless of who you're asking the questions to, and you're also able to apply it across your communities, across the US, across the world. So that's helpful from the perspective of benchmarking. How well are you doing as a community? Now you have a validated tool that you can use to say, it doesn't matter if I'm in St. Louis or I'm in Philadelphia or Hawaii, wherever it might be, that I can be able to learn something about how well we as a community are doing relative to each other. Oh, if I go back one more time, back. So the one of the things that we focused on a lot at the Abramson Center Polisher Research Institute is this idea of really knowing the person that you're caring for and the centrality of really developing that individualized approach, right? So the importance of knowing the person through understanding what their preference is. How do you like to live your daily life? What is meaningful to you? What is aspirational for you in terms of from the time you wake up in the morning till the time you go to bed at night? How do you communicate that information so that your life is meaningful and you're living it in the most authentic way that you can? But more than that, we started off this conference by talking about how our interconnectedness is tied to those individual stories and those individual preferences. So the health of one person is intimately connected to the health of everybody. So by tying the story to the individual and rolling that up to our whole community, we leave no one behind, right? So the idea of assessing and knowing who we all are individually and using that to develop an authentic and respectful life plan really underlies what you just heard Val and Sister talking about. Okay. All right, so this is just one of the tools that we've been using. It's called the Preferences for Everyday Living Inventory. This tool, you saw the life plan that Val laid out. This tool has many aspects of that in it. So this is an example of how important is it for you to choose your medical care professional. For one sister, that may be incredibly important. For another sister, it may not be so much. But knowing who it's incredibly important for helps us to design that life care plan for that particular sister. So here's just an example of the Gray Nuns who were kind enough to fill this tool out. So the top four most important preferences, just to give you an example from our respondents, was choosing your own medical professional. What do you like to do to feel better when you're feeling upset? What do you like to do to take care of the place where you live? And what do you like to do to exercise? So these were the top four preferences that came out as a group. So as a community, right off the bat, we were able to see that these were things that had to be a part of the life care plan for this community. Now, we've seen hundreds of these different types of communities fill this out. They are as unique as they are people. Each community has its own portfolio of preferences that are important, and of course they change as that community changes, as they continue to grow and develop. And so we'll see movement in what is important to this particular community or any community that we're working with. So as an example, we've already heard about the idea of choosing your own medical professional, but the example of what makes you feel better when you're upset. And we asked the sisters to provide us with some examples of what that was for them. So of course, for praying, reading, solving the problem, being alone, listening to music, watching TV, taking a walk. So there you see that incredible diversity around that life plan for a particular sister. But we know that for the community as a whole, this is important. Taking care of the place where you live. That includes involvement in things like picking up, organizing, washing dishes, tending plants, folding laundry, decorating. So again, that incredible important process of being engaged in the community where you're living. And then obviously exercising, everybody has a slightly different take on that. Even in a wheelchair, you could still exercise. So that might just take the form of stretching or actual walking or taking a class. Val mentioned the importance of that second half, which is now that we know what people's life plans are and we've built this plan for that person and for that community, how do we know whether we're being successful? The Thriving Inventory was actually developed by a Swedish researcher who lives in Australia. And he actually put this inventory together, and it's a well-validated tool that focuses on this concept of thriving, flourishing. So is our healthcare plan, is our life plan for an individual having the intended impact that we're looking for? We're not intending, as a part of care delivery, to just say, oh, we're doing good enough. Back to that idea of a Cadillac healthcare plan. We don't want to do just good enough. We want people to thrive. We want people to flourish as a part of the care system that we're providing. So this tool is one example, and a very good one, of how you can use that within your own organization, with your own care community, to see, are you on the mark or are you not? Next one. So this is probably too small for you to see, but again, what does data give you? Data allows you to see, first of all, the green, saying these are the things that we're doing really, really well. So for the Gray Nuns, they were thriving from the perspective of making the best out of their current life situation, seeing the positive sides of being in this housing, experiencing this housing as a safe place, and deciding how things are in my room. So these are all things to celebrate as a community. These are things that we're doing well, that our community is thriving and flourishing. Whereas some of the things down here in the red, people are not flourishing so much. Again, creating targets that we can now use to help work together as a community to resolve. So again, some of these things are things like having a nice time with fellow residents. Okay, so again, that terribly complex time of moving, transitioning, part of that is reforming those social relationships with people. So an area for improvement. Having a strong wish to return to my previous life, if possible. That longing, the grief of what occurs when you leave something behind in that grieving process that needs to take place. Spending time with fellow residents to the extent I wish, thriving in a physical environment, having meaningful relationships. So again, you see that social the type of approach that really, at the very beginning, and this was at the very beginning of when we were working together, these were things that served as targets, goalposts for us to work together in terms of how we could make it better. Okay, and then finally, not only did we want people to thrive, but we also wanted them to be satisfied. So that standardized process of asking, so tell us, give us feedback. How are we doing? How would you rate our efforts in helping you? How would you rate the coordination of services? How would you rate our services in helping you to manage independently? And have you ever contacted life care coordinators to get help or advice? So that type of feedback, solicited on a regular basis, again, helps to ensure that the community is moving together as a whole, that we're providing the type of service that people really need, want, and are satisfied and thriving with. Again, in our satisfaction survey, just to give you a specific example of how this tool was used as of July. So 94% of the sisters rated us as saying, how would you rate the services provided through Abramson Life Grant Coordination? 94% rated as excellent or good. Good news, right? But again, we want to pay attention to the types of things that need improvement. So 6% said that we needed improvement, and here's an example. If it's really important to communicate with us once a month, the assigned person needs to work on finding a suitable time to reach me. Okay? So I hope you see through some of this that, first of all, the importance of using a standardized tool. That the preference tool I put on your tabletop, some more information about these tools. You can check it out. They're all free. They're all freely available. If it's right for your community, we invite you to use them. But again, some of these tools are really being used across hundreds and thousands of people that allow us to not only benchmark across people, but then advance the science of how we can really provide better care. All right, turn it back to you guys.
I guess the question is, do you have questions for us or anything you'd like to ask? I see a lot of hands over here, and that's my own people. Okay, who wants to go first?
Okay. My question is, that survey was done in June 2016. When would you do another one to see the difference?
So the question was, how often you're talking about asking about references?
The thriving at home inventory,
Okay.
you had the percentages and you had the last category. I'm just curious as to what it would be.
Yeah. So
It's something that that's something that we would do on a regular basis. I don't know if it was redone when we did that other assessment, the satisfaction. I don't know, but I could get you that information. Because it is good to do an update, and I kind of thought we had a graph that showed what it was and what it is, so.
That indicates where they started.
Right.
I'd like to see where they are now.
Right, exactly. It is important to repeat these non-assessments.
That information and all the follow-up, the handouts and everything are on the website, the Vital Living. You can click to download, and then any supplemental information we'll post up there after the meeting and get to everybody.
More questions. I have the same question as Jane, so I'll defer to Bridget.
Same question. However, as part of an ethical researcher, you would report that to the leadership team, yes, at some point? You intend to do that?
I'm sorry, report which part?
Dr. Connor from the University of Notre Dame. As ethical procedure, you will report your findings to whatever community you have asked to participate. Is that correct?
So this is only,
the results that we're showing here are only the results that were given voluntarily by the Grey Nuns. So I did show other, I could have showed other.
Oh, no, I just mean, do you report? So Grey Nuns volunteer.
Oh, giving back to the
Will
Grey
you
Nuns,
report
yes.
to Grey Nun leadership? Mercies do it, will you
Yes.
report, etc.?
Yes, that's the answer.
Thank you.
I think part of it too is we have a very active community life team that provides the family side of support for the sisters, and we're still, I think, in the process of, as Val mentioned, transitioning of their letting go of some of the things and letting Abramson's handle more of the things. And it's not the community life team's fault only. I mean, the sisters are reluctant to let go of the people that they know and letting the sisters do things for them. But that would be, they get much more feedback regularly because they interact with the life planners all the time. We always met, we have a new, the new leadership team came in July. So they're just getting themselves acclimated to all of this. Those of us who went out, we did meet with Val and her team every 6 months or so, and I'm sure they'll keep doing that.
Since we know that advancing age is the biggest predictor for dementia, do you do any baseline testing for that?
At this time, we didn't do baseline cognitive status testing. But based on what we know and the history that the CLAs have with the sisters, when we see that there is some cognitive losses, we implement that interventions as part of our life plan. We do have some sisters attending a day program, and there's a variety of resources that we provide in their living environment to help support them. And it really, truly is a partnership, because we are blessed to have a beautiful grant that allows us to provide services right away for sisters who are eligible for Medicaid, but it takes sometimes up to a year to get approved. So we want to be able to provide those services right away. And the Grey Nuns have been very open to, we work together. They will make sure that someone has the right services. They work with us. So they will pay for some services if they need to. But our job is to find out the best way to get them for the sisters so they can thrive, and ultimately to prevent hospitalizations and institutionalization. And I think we've been very successful with that, because we will go the extra mile together, working together to get resources to allow someone to live to their last day in their apartment. It's not only good for each sister, but it's good for the other sisters to see the effort and the hurdles that we will overcome to make that happen.
I would say too, in terms of doing a assessment for, cognitive awareness, when you had the whole group just in a crisis of transition, it would have been a terrible time to try to do that assessment, because I think it would have come out with a lot more people with issues. Then at this point, I think you could do that kind of an assessment and see how people are, because it's 2 years later. But 2 years ago, half the group would have looked like they were having all kinds of issues.
Sister Julia, just so I understand, you have some sisters in long-term care facility, you have assisted living apartments, and other sisters living out of the area?
Yes, we do have some sisters in the Philadelphia area. Everybody's within a 5-mile radius, the ones who live here, and that would be, the Grey Nuns at this point have 89 sisters, and I would say probably 75 live in the Philadelphia area, close to that number. The rest of them live, we have some, the biggest numbers in Buffalo, New York, okay, and we have a couple down in Baltimore, but most of the community is in this area now.
So, does every sister have a life plan, or just the ones in the apartments?
Well, the sisters who are in this area, who are in independent apartments, so they're two different locations. One apartment complex where a number of sisters live is it's just an apartment complex, so there's no services at all that come with that. The others are in a complex that it's part of a CCRC, a continuing care community. So there are some services that come, they get a meal together every day as part of being there. Housekeeping is provided once a week to all residents there. The ones in the regular apartments, they don't have that. But Abramson's is now reaching out to both groups. And I would say too, with my experience with the sisters and you know, we're growing in this relationship, as sisters begin to really need services of any kind, they then become more attentive to what does Abramson's do and how does it work. When they can do everything for themselves, they're not really happy to talk to life planners and all, why do I need that, and another thing to complicate my life and all of that stuff. But I mean, the whole idea is that they know people before they're in trouble. But getting to know new people is not something that everybody is happy about.
Julia, can you talk a little bit about the financial benefit of having sisters age in the right place and independent living and using those services versus having them move to assisted living?
Yes, there's an incredible price difference between using services, you know, home services compared to in-house services. If you're in Pennsylvania anyway, there's no subsidy from anywhere for assisted living. So that's the most expensive kind of care. Now, nursing home is very expensive unless you don't have enough money, you know, and you can go on Medicaid. Now, for us, mostly everybody pretty quick can go on Medicaid because we don't have that kind of money individually. But so that's not as expensive as the assisted living kind of plan. The people who get the home health services, you're only paying for each service that they need, and it's extremely less expensive. I would say what we were paying right until I left, you know, was I transitioned in July 1st. We were paying for the services Abramson's renders us, because we can use waiver program funding for some of it, and you know, Abramson's has some of their grant money that they've been using. What we were paying for their whole service was for the whole group was basically what we pay for 1 month, every month for the whole group. What we pay for those people was equivalent to one sister in assisted living. So that's the kind of difference in the funding. So extremely different.
I would just point out that every state is really different.
Absolutely.
That, like, a lot of states don't have the waiver program.
Right. Right, and every state has a different Medicaid system and everything else, so you have to know your state, and they call them by different names. Rob?
Val, can you talk about the adult day program and how it's benefited and supported sisters to be independent?
We happen to have an adult day. We call it a medical adult day. That's because we can manage a number of medical issues there, as well as social and behavioral issues that may be a part of having cognitive losses. And so we have that day program that's not that far from where the sisters live. Really, it's just a couple miles, maybe.
Closer than our offices, which are within the 5-mile radius.
And we really thought initially that many more sisters would avail themselves of the day program. There's a nurse there, the nurse practitioner's there, even though the nurse practitioner also does house calls. And it's a great meal, and it's a very engaging environment. But initially, the sisters were overwhelmed with, have we said that enough? It was an overwhelming process, moving and learning a new path. And so I wasn't then surprised that the sisters who really did have beginning and some cognitive losses were reluctant to go. But now we do have 2 sisters that go 5 days a week, I think, and really enjoy it. And the other people at the day program enjoy having the sisters there. It's almost like going to a job. You go, it's a routine, it is a beautiful environment, and it helps us really stay on top of the sisters' care needs and making sure they're not declining further.
Can I just say something about, the other thing that's very significant about that is that these sisters see it as their ministry, because they're also able to give and take with the other residents that are there. So they see that as a very positive giving.
Yes, if you didn't hear that, it's really like the sisters living out their ministry. And it is a total give and take. They are busy when they're there. They are not passive. They are actively engaging with the other clients. And it's really been beautiful.
Julia, Liz had mentioned Sister Sharon and senior move transition managers. You worked with one. Can you talk a little bit about that experience?
Yes, we didn't have a sister to do all that helping with the moves when we were moving, and at the time we were moving 4 sisters a week, 2 on Tuesday, 2 on Thursday, 2 on Tuesday, 2 on Thursday, packing and repacking and moving. And Realm, of course, helped us with a lot of the logistics of that, but we used, it was a senior mover help group that came in. We did interview several. One that we chose did a very good job of working with our sisters. They, came on board ahead of each person's move. Every week they came, helped the people who were about to move to get their stuff gathered together, finalize their packing, do whatever they needed. They came on moving day, got the stuff into the moving vans, and then the moving vans went to the next place, and they were on there to meet them, and they unpacked and set up the apartments so that when the sister came over that afternoon, it was set up for her. Now, sisters were able to mark, we encouraged them to let the helpers do that. A few were very reluctant to, they'd mark some boxes, do not open, or don't, some they wanted, and some marked so many boxes, do not open. One was all upset because when she got there, her bed wasn't made, but she had marked the box with the sheets and blankets, do not open. So, so you did have a few glitches like that, but they did a great job, and that worked. And we had all kinds of sisters, and our associates worked with helping sisters, actually taking the sister herself, helping her move, take her out to lunch, get her over there, do that kind of stuff. So it's a major project to move. Those of you who have done it know all about it. But we didn't have a Sister Sharon, but we had transition helpers that helped us quite a lot. Thank God. In Buffalo, when the sisters were moving down from there, we had other helpers up there that worked with the sisters, and a couple of our sisters up there coordinated that.
Just a couple of points with Robin and I helping to put together the program. The first was really getting to know the Grey Nuns, their language, their terminology, not to use words like care, knowing that was going to alienate them, the life coaching and those kinds of things, and really knowing kind of the basic elements of what you wanted to put together. And then it was going to the Abramson Center would say, hey, is this, like you said, does this sound like a fit? And we talked about the language a lot, so that there was resonance and there was that willingness to learn and dive into the culture of the Grey Nuns. And then in seeking a partner, someone that really is an expert in optimizing, and I can't emphasize this enough, government reimbursement. It is an art form. One well practiced by the Abramson Center and the best nonprofits and for-profits. But as you know, you can have lots of dual eligible sisters, and they are signed up to be dual eligible. So it's just that process of working with leadership and so forth to get folks enrolled. And then it's knowing what time to put what person in what program. Abramson brought a lot of extras because they had that Pew grant. And whereas you would have had sisters waiting a full year who were skilled nursing eligible for services, you could begin those services right away. And then lastly, having validated scientific instruments as part of the process throughout allows you to really measure the impact. Kind of tying to your point, Jane, you want to know before and after, because as you're looking for additional support, whether it be through grant opportunities or third-party reimbursement, I mentioned community health choices coming into the forefront. If you can harness the things that you do, because a lot of what is wellness for the sisters, it was already being done by the Grey Nuns, and it's all being done by a lot of you. You just haven't packaged it in a way that really precisely targets your community and addresses interventions that are highly impactful in a very scientific way. But as you're able to do that and study it, that interests people. When you can save money by who you are and how you keep yourself well, and you can replicate that for other affinity. I consider affinity your groups that are already naturally inclined to work and be interdependent. And as you can show how you develop a program which is unique to yourself and to your culture, and then you buddy that up with governmental payment systems, you can do something that is highly impactful. And as you sell the program, you're selling it individually. This person's going to live a fuller life. The congregation is going to more directly address the mission, the things that are important, mission priorities. And then also, you're making an impact on society because you're studying the interventions you're doing right now at a time when this culture is hungry for wellness, it's hungry for wholeness, it's hungry for community. So as I said, I think you have a lot of answers. It's important to study them as you're spending the money to do this. Study what it is that you're doing. I thank our guests for being here. Do you have a question as we wrap up?
I was just going to make a comment. One of the things that was just pointed out to me by one of the Abramson workers that I met with during the week was that our mission is the same. The mission of Abramson and the mission of the Nuns, and to deliver compassionate care. And I was just so touched by that when she pointed that out.
Well, just an aside, I worked back in the day when it was called the Philadelphia Geriatric Center, so I'm a good Catholic boy as well. And I never felt as comfortable as I did working for a Jewish organization. I mean, the Jewish community in Philadelphia and beyond, really a lot of major urban areas, the investment the Jewish community has made in elder care services is remarkable. And to that end, the Polisher Institute at the Abramson Center, the Quakers, the Catholics to some extent, but I have to say I'm disappointed in my brothers and sisters to some degree in terms of really doing things that are impactful for their parents, but for the community at large. And the core values are the same. They're Judeo-Christian values. And let's add our Muslim brothers and sisters in there as well. So, anything else, folks? Thank you very much.